All right, let's go. What am I going to talk about? So I'm continuing this series, Massive Societal Change. It's a big topic. I mean, my wife and I sat down this morning. I can't remember how we got started, but typical morning, really. And she threw a couple of things at me. We discussed them. We listened to a YouTube video. We argued about it, and we don't argue. We just talk about things. And one of the things that came out of that was this. Let me see if I can screen share here. Okay. This is what is this? This is a picture. Did you take a picture of her iPad? I don't know what this is, but it was a video. YouTube, obviously, you can see it there on the logo, where a woman was talking about how to fight climate change by changing your consumer patterns. Fighting back can save you money. And the takeaway clause, the takeaway soundbite was, and I think she even recommended this, rather than buying a new iPhone every year, wait a year. Buy a new iPhone every 2 years. And we both laughed. That's absolutely ridiculous. Of course, you're not going to fight climate change by buying a new iPhone every 2 years. This is definitely a what the fuck moment, right? This is like, oh, I see. You don't get it at all. You simply don't understand. And that's fine. I don't expect everybody to understand. But these kinds of statements are actually really common. So in a discussion of massive societal change, we're going to have to address this gorilla in the room, which is that everyone's telling us to consume less, or not even less necessarily, just consume differently. I mean, buying an iPhone once every 2 years instead of every year, that sounds like less consumption. But, is it really? There's still a factory somewhere operating 24/7 in China to give you an iPhone every 2 years as opposed to every year. So it doesn't really change anything. And of course the woman says here in this title to her video, fighting back on climate change. I can save you money. Oh, okay, fine. So that is probably true. I mean, yes, it's probably true. If you buy an iPhone every 2 years instead of every year, you'll save money. Okay, but saving you money doesn't fight climate change. So we have two perverse messages here, and this comes at us all the time from industry, and also even from the fossil fuel industry. The fossil fuel industry was pretty keen to adopt mileage standards for autos. They didn't fight it, and that's the same way of saying they thought it was okay. The auto industry did not fight better gas mileage requirements for automobiles. They did not fight it. Therefore, they thought it was okay. The auto industry did not fight improved fuel efficiency for automobiles. Therefore, they must have thought it was okay. So when you have like the fossil fuel industry basically tacitly saying, yes, consuming less of our product is okay. They're saying that. And you might say, well, Cougar, that can't be right because obviously they want us to consume more of it. No, they don't care what individuals consume, to be honest. They don't. And I'll get to how this meshes with the massive societal change in a moment. But I have to address this gorilla in the room. And they don't care how much you consume of their product. They don't really care if you consume none. They'll even tell you, oh, you're worried about climate change? Then you should stop driving and flying and vacationing, and you should just do that. They'll tell you that, and you'll say, wow, why would they encourage people to, that can't be true. Why would they encourage people? Because they don't care about you and what you do. They care about what the industry does. And all the time that you, as an individual, who are sensitive to the topic of global heating or climate change or whatever you want to call it, what they want you to do is feel good about that so that you shut the fuck up. And if what it takes to shut you the fuck up is that you do something righteous, or should I say self-righteous, that you do something self-righteous, and then you get to wear the halo, and you get to be superior, and you get to be okay, therefore, because you've done something self-righteous, then they encourage you, absolutely, you do that, and you get to wear the halo. Over here, we're going to be doing something completely different. So this idea that individual choice, oh, I could buy an iPhone this year, or I could wait, and I could save money if I wait, and it's okay, it's still working, and but there's new features, but I don't really need those new features. Do I need another dozen megapixels on my camera? I don't know. I don't even know if that makes a difference. So I'm going to wait, and I'll buy another iPhone next year instead of this year. Okay, that kind of internal argument and justification and how you behave as a consumer, they laugh. They laugh. They totally want you to go down that path. They want you to spend all your time worrying about whether you should buy an iPhone this year or wait till next year, maybe even, dare I say it, buy one 2 years from now. So they love that. They love that because that means that the people who are self-righteous and just want to wear the halo can make a personal consumer choice to just do something different as a consumer, still do the thing, they're still going to buy a new iPhone, but do it differently, will consume differently. And they love that. They absolutely love that. And they will walk up and shake your hand individually. Yes, you are doing the right thing for you. And you feel good about that decision? Let me shake your hand because you did the right thing for you. And then they'll walk away. And meanwhile, they're laughing behind their hand because you, this person who cares about this topic, the only choice you could come up with, and the only way you could back away from your terror, your horror, the nightmare scenario looming you in the face, the only way you could walk away from that is to consume differently. And they walk away laughing behind their hand. Well, we diffused that one. Because now that you've decided you're going to consume differently, you won't be protesting. You won't be storming the Capitol. You won't be demanding change from your regulators and from your government leaders. You won't be doing anything. You're just decided, well, the way I'm going to tackle climate change is just like a word about climate change, question mark. Well, then fight back. And by the way, I can save you money. You'll just consume differently. You'll still consume, but you'll consume differently. And the producers of the fossil fuels and the Chamber of Commerce and the iPhone manufacturers and the electric car manufacturers and everything, the fast fashion manufacturers and everything else, all these consumer giants, all this consumerism that's being forced down our throat 24 hours a day. And fast foods and convenience foods and shopping at the supermarket and and looking good and having the latest fashions and having the latest iPhone. All these things being pushed down our throats all the time, constantly. Billboards, ads on your phone, ads on your browser, ads on your toaster, everything all the time crammed down our throats. So long as you keep consuming, you can consume different, and that's fine. And in the theme of massive societal change, that has to end. And it will. It will end. It will end. It will end because it must end. And why must it end? Because consumption without production, everyone a consumer, almost nobody a producer, is fueled entirely, 100% of the time, for 100% of the things, by fossil fuel consumption. Fossil fuels make consumerism, in the absence of production, possible. And so long as people are consuming and not producing, then the fossil fuels must flow. And that's why the fossil fuel industry doesn't give two shits about what you personally do. Because everyone else is doing something else. And even you are still going to do it. The person who decides to wait another year to buy an iPhone is still going to buy an iPhone. And even if half the people who own iPhones, and half is like a huge number, this is billions of people, right? We're talking about billions of people who own iPhones, just put off their purchase by 6 months or a year. It makes no difference to industry, no difference of any kind. They might notice a slight percentage, single-digit percentage decrease in iPhone consumption. But again, that's only if half of the population of iPhone users wait 6 months or a year. There might be a noticeable decrease. And they'll say, well, we just, a change in consumer sentiment and we had a slight decrease in the growth of iPhone consumption. I'm just talking about iPhones. I'm just talking about that's just iPhones. What about electric cars? What about everything? What about travel miles for vacations and everything else? Trips to Disneyland, picks anything. Consumption of Cheetos, consumption of ground beef, anything you want to pick that people consume without producing. Because you didn't produce Disneyland. You didn't produce the cow that gave the ground beef. You didn't produce anything. In fact, you personally, I personally, we don't produce anything. We consume. And in a civilization that is no longer based on fossil fuels, consumption vanishes. It's just gone. We've had consumer classes in the past, but the consumer classes in the past were basically the parasites, the king and his court, who never did anything except bad things, right? Cut people's heads off, invade villages, exact taxes, cut people's hands off when they don't pay their taxes, cut people's feet off when they don't pay their taxes, right? That parasite class. The clergy, right? Religion, they don't produce anything. What good are they? I don't know. They don't work the fields. They don't do anything for people. They don't make pottery. Nothing. They don't do anything. The clergy, so that's and then of course the financial class, the merchant class, what do they produce? Nothing. They move goods around. They don't produce the goods that they move. Now you might have a farmer who brings some produce, food, right? A carpenter who brings chairs or something to the market. They're producers. So I'm a carpenter. I went and I cut down a tree with an axe. I shaped the wood, I made the chair, I hammered it together, I glued it together, I took it to the market and I sold it. Hey, I produced a chair. Now I'm at the market, I'm selling a chair. But I was able to produce a chair. And there's going to be people around like that who produce something from raw materials using their own labor and then they sell it. But that's not a merchant. That's a carpenter. A merchant is somebody who buys that chair, transports it to another town and sells it there. Did the merchant produce the chair? No. Who was the producer? The carpenter, who probably even cut down the tree. So how many people are there in the world who do that? Who cut down a tree, produce a chair, and sell it at a market? Zero. There are zero people who do that. You don't know anybody who does that. And to find someone who actually does that, you would probably have to go to Africa to find some African herdsman who in his spare time will cut down a tree, shape it into something, and either give it away or sell it, or keep it in his home. Almost nobody produces anything. Oh, does the farmer produce something? No, the farmer doesn't produce anything. The farmer drives the tractor. That's what the farmer does. The farmer drives the tractor. Oh, and by the way, the farmer probably doesn't even drive the tractor. He probably has a low-wage immigrant laborer who drives his tractor for him. So the farmer, the person of record who owns the land and owns the tractor and owns the title and sells the stuff on the market for goods, that person produces nothing. And they consume. They bought a tractor. There you go. And they bought the seeds, and they bought the fertilizer, and they bought the water, and they bought the electricity, and it was all imported. And they just kind of assemble it and make sure that things happen in a certain order and with a certain timing, and they have access to the markets to sell the product. But the farmer doesn't produce anything. The farmer watches Fox News all day, and maybe they do some maintenance on the tractor that they bought. And they don't even produce the parts that they use to do the maintenance. They don't produce the air filters. They don't produce the oil that goes in the crankcase. The farmer doesn't produce any of those things when he's doing maintenance, when he's working on his tractor. He's consuming. So even the people you think produce things, that produce food, they're not producing shit. The land is producing. The tree produces. And the farmer never touches any of it. It's all consumption. You'd have to go to Africa to find some tribesman who, with a axe and a pocket knife, makes a spoon out of a piece of wood he found on the ground. That's production. That's a person who really produced something. Except he didn't produce the knife. So what am I talking about? Okay, he's an African tribesman who picked up a piece of wood, carved a a piece of wood with a sharp rock that he also picked up, that he sharpened with another sharp rock. So now he has a sharp rock that he can use to carve wood. You see how this is? You see how convoluted this shit gets? And you're thinking, Cougar, you're just being delusional. You're just being demented. No, I'm not. I'm talking about massive societal change. And you're going to have to become a producer of everything without fossil fuels. And why will you not have fossil fuels? Well, let's see. What are the reasons? Oh, I remember fossil fuels are destroying the world for human purposes. There you go. Well, that can't be right. Oh, yeah, that's right. Well, we'll find a solution. No, you won't. Well, there's some smart people. No, there isn't. Nobody's working on this. I know who's working on this, and I know what they're working on, and I know what they're talking about because I'm paying attention. And they're not working on this, and they're not going to solve the problem because there is no solution, because it's a wicked problem. Wicked problem. Look it up in the dictionary. Look it up on Wikipedia. Wicked problem. Admits of no solution. Well, you're just calling it that. No, I've discovered that that's what it is. All the solutions to fossil fuel consumption lead to one place. No consumption. The end of consumption. The end of the consumer economy. The end of iPhones. The end of fossil fuel extraction. The end of refineries. The end of cars. The end of freeways. The end of road repair. The end of hardware stores. And lumber and roofing and the end of water deliveries. Clean water through water treatment plants. Gone. Done. Without fossil fuels, you can't do it. Well, that's not true. Water's not made of fossil fuels. No, I guess not. But the water filtration plant is made of fossil fuels. Sad, you should see them trying to build anything. Try and build anything that's on that scale without fossil fuels. It is to laugh. And of course, there's filters in there, and there's chemicals, and they're purifying the water, and the water came to the water treatment plant through pipelines, which are made out of iron or plastic, and they were buried in the ground, and there's pumps, and they use electricity. And where's the electricity come from? And there's all this stuff that has to come together to give you cold water at the tap. And then if you want hot water, you need a water heater. And what does that look like? Well, that's this and the other thing. And it came from Germany, and it came from Australia. And all these parts came from China, and someone had to assemble it. And it was shipped on a ship using fossil fuels to your house. And it was installed with a plumber, an electrician. And they got there with a car and a truck and this thing and then that thing. And the electricity for the water heater comes from far away. There's a grid, and there's all these people working on the grid. And there's all these fossil fuels. And there's a coal-fired power plant. And there's a gas-fired power plant. And then you get the electricity to your hot water heater that came from Germany, so you can have hot water at the tap. And the water came from 1,000 miles away. Jesus Christ. Nobody understands that. And that's just water. We have to stop burning fossil fuels. If we don't stop burning fossil fuels, the world becomes uninhabitable for human purposes. Oh, and by the way, it's already veering hard towards becoming uninhabitable for human purposes. Now, if we stop burning fossil fuels this afternoon, maybe we can avert the worst of that. Maybe we can avoid the worst of that. But we won't. But we will stop burning fossil fuels. I don't know if that decision comes from the top down. I don't know if that decision comes from the universe, where the universe says, now the planet is too hot, too dry, too hazardous, too politically unstable, too economically unstable for you to produce fossil fuels. People are home. They're not leaving their homes. They're not leaving their families. They're too frightened to be at work. They're too frightened to be on the freeways. Everything is too hot. They're home where the air conditioning is. They're home where they can be with their family. The kids aren't in school. No one's going to work. It's too dangerous. They're trying to find food. They're growing their own food. They're doing the best they can. But they're not out there in the world. And they're not going to the nuclear power plant. And that's been shut down. And they're not going to the oil field to repair the pumps and the valves and the pipelines and the pump machines because it's too hot. And they stayed home. And so when those things break, they break down. And then there's an explosion. And then there's a refinery that goes up in flames. And then there's another thing. And then there's something else. And there's no maintenance. And no one can deal with it. And it's too hot. And it's too dangerous. And they're staying home with their families. And they're refugees. And now they're in another country. They're not going back. And then the fossil fuels just dry up because people don't want to do the work. They want to be home. They want to take care of their families. They want to leave the country. They're fleeing Saudi Arabia. They're fleeing Iran and Iraq. They're fleeing Afghanistan. They don't want to be doing this anymore. They want to go home. They want to go someplace where they're not going to be killed. Because the world is becoming uninhabitable for human purposes. So either we decide to do this and take the hit, or it is done to us and we take the hit. And maybe one of those sounds better than the other. The smart move is that we give up on fossil fuels and we do it deliberately and we plan around that and we tell people this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it. And if they don't believe it, they can storm the Capitol. That's fine. You go ahead and do what you're going to do, but we're still going to do this. We must do this because we don't want an extinction of the human species and probably most of the other life on Earth. We're going to do this and we're going to do it now and we don't care what you think because we must. That's one approach. Or we could just wait. And it will be done to us. And then because there's no planning, we'll get whatever we want. But the point is, it is massive societal change. It's not going to happen on its own. And when it happens, it's going to be disruptive. It's either going to happen to us or we're going to adopt it, and it's going to be massive. And the changes, maybe we could anticipate some of them, maybe we couldn't. And maybe they're all bad, and that's what makes this a wicked problem. All the choices you're going to make at that point are bad. They're all bad ones. But one of the things that goes away is the consumer economy. It just evaporates. That's it. It was supported by fossil fuels. No one knew that. And now everybody must become a producer. The ultimate source of all production is nature. Everything that's sustainable is sustainable because it is derivative of the force of life. Trees grow. Trees grow from seeds. Where do the seeds come from? Other trees. That's life. Okay, you're witnessing the miracle of life. And if you let trees grow to a certain size and they do okay in the habitat where they are found, then you get things that you can consume from nature. You get nuts, fruits. Some plants you get berries, right? And you can get wood, which is a derivative product. Of course, you have to kill the tree to get the wood, or you can wait till a branch falls off and you can harvest the wood from the ground. And when you get the wood, you can then use the wood to make a spoon. Or if you're more clever than that, you can use the wood to make a chair or a stool. If you have enough of it, you can make a shelter. But that's consumption from natural production, not fossil fuel-based production. And can you survive on what is produced by nature? Sure, people have done that for a long time. We didn't have fossil fuels for most of human history. Now, we weren't 8,000 million people. And when did the number of people start to increase? Well, when we had modernity, right? The Industrial Revolution, which began more or less with wood, burning wood until they burned all the forests. And then they went to coal, and eventually they abandoned steam, and then they went to internal combustion, crude oil and other derivatives, electricity, running motors. And that's how you got the Industrial Revolution. Well, that's been going on for at least 300 years, hammer and tongs, producing industrial goods. But probably if you want to go back, you could probably go back to the Middle Ages. Or maybe even the Iron Age, right? 500 BC, 400 BC, when we really got into the swing of things. There's a big difference, for example, between a plow made entirely of wood. It's basically just a sharp stick that you jam into the ground behind an ox, versus a plow with what they call a plowshare, right? Plowshares, which is that curved metal blade that can really turn the soil. It's night and day. The amount of plowing you can do and the quality of the ground after it's been plowed is completely different between those two modalities. And before, the the various Iron Ages and Bronze Age and whatnot, everything was a sharp stick. And after that, we had metal. So we could, and so when did the Industrial Revolution start? Maybe it was 500 BC with the Iron Age. I don't know. When did mechanized warfare begin? Well, we had to have metal for mechanized warfare, right? Could the Roman legions have conquered all of Europe with just sharp sticks? Nah, probably not. They had armor, they had bronze, they had iron later, and they had all these things. It was all mechanized. And they could do amazing things as an imperialist power. So how far back do you want to go before people are just basically, consuming nature directly with a pointed stick? 2,500 years? 3,000 years? How many people were there then? How many people could this earth produce goods for consumption just as a planet with life, with renewing through seeds and birth, the things that people could consume? How many people could that life process, that life trajectory support? And, you go back that far, you're talking 500 million people, right? 250 million people, maybe. Actually, if you go back 2,500 years, you're probably looking at, about 200 million people. 200 million people. That was it. On the entire planet. That was it. 200 million people. What is that? That's like 3% of the current population. And in my estimates on this channel, when I talk about how many people will survive on Earth without fossil fuels, I regularly come up with 1%. So, 2,500 years ago, we didn't have fossil fuels and we didn't have a lot of industry. We were just basically living off of wood fire and animal husbandry and, domesticated crops, domesticated animals. Back then, 2,500 years ago, 3% of the current population, 3%. You say, well, that's a long ways from 1%. No, it isn't. And furthermore, I don't think 3% is that viable. We are all consumers. None of us are producers. If you wanted to strip out the fossil fuels right now and told everybody, okay, boys and girls, now it's time to become producers, I think the population would drop to zero in most places. It would just drop to zero within a month or less. Because people would be struggling even to find water. And you can't survive more than a few days without water. That's it. Some people would find water and most wouldn't, and they would mostly die in place. And of course, there'd be a lot of violence. I mean, if we were to tell people today, well, okay, you have to live like you did 2,500 years ago. And they would say, what? No internet? No TikTok? What am I going to do? But they would very quickly find out, oh, wait, no plumbing? No hot and cold running water? No food at the store? Wait. No Starbucks? No fast food? No nothing? None of those things? I have to produce all those things now? I have to produce my food? Wait, I can't produce food. Okay, wait, I have an orange tree in the backyard. All right, well, you pick oranges for a few days, and then you have no oranges. And you could wait for that tree to produce another crop of oranges, but that takes a year. Nobody's ready for this. It's inconceivable to me that people could ever turn this corner. Ever. They will never turn this corner. I know people. And they talk a brave talk. Well, when it comes right down to it, and they really have to face the music, and they have to face up to what the laws of physics demand, that you are going to live off the power of the sun. And I don't mean solar panels. I mean a tree growing fruit through photosynthesis, that power of the sun. I mean rainfall, the power of the sun, evaporating water and transporting it and then creating rainfall, that power of the sun. I'm talking about pasture growing under the light of the sun, photosynthesis, growing pasture for you to put your animals on, that kind of solar power. When you really come down to it, people have to live by the power of the sun, and the process of life itself, which begins with seeds and birth. And birth begins with, copulation, two animals, a male and a female. Do you have one of each? Do you know what kind of animals you have to have? Are they going to be healthy? Do they have pasture? Do they have habitat? Is there going to be any birth of anything ever again? Will any tree grow and bear any fruit at all? Global climate change and global heating starts to impact life itself. That's a big deal, my friend. That is a big fucking deal. That is a big deal. We've been eating fossil fuels almost exclusively for the last 300 years, and probably we've destroyed the planet sufficiently that now life processes under hothouse Earth, life processes, C3 plants growing and avoiding the heat and being able to produce fruits and grains, okay? Life processes under a regime of global heating. Life itself stops. We are in the sixth mass extinction. Does that not register with anybody but me? That means, though, that this planet does not support a life. Well, if there were no people, but there are 8,000 million people. Well, but if people were differently, but they're not. But if we stopped using pesticides, but we won't. Now, all this aspirational wishful thinking, all this hippie hand-holding, singing kumbaya, doesn't cut it with physics. I'm sorry, people. It doesn't cut it. Just doesn't cut the mustard at all. You're going to have to you're going to have to deal with physics now, my friend. And physics doesn't give two fucks about what you think about what ought to be possible. Physicists are going to say, nah, that's not going to work. No, you can't grow plants there. No. You're not going to clear the boreal forest and make that suitable for corn and wheat. Nah, sorry. That's not going to work. And even if you pull that off, you know how many days of sunlight there are up there? It's about a third of what you have in the Midwest. About a third. You know how deep the soil is up there right now? About a third, or maybe even a tenth of what it is in the Midwest. That's the soil depth up there. Nah, physics just says no. Nah, you can talk like that. You can have a chart with a line and a Sharpie, and you mark this part and you mark that part, and the line goes up and the line does this other thing, and physics is just going to say, no, that's not going to happen. Sorry. Not sorry, actually, but no. And the thing we won't be able to do is consume. We won't be able to consume. Nobody will be a consumer of anything. And that includes food and water. Unless they produced it. There will be no parasitic class. There will be no kings. There'll be no court. There'll be no priests. There'll be no merchants. There will be no parasitic class. The parasitic class, as we know it now, is going to collapse through the floor. Even the criminal class, which is a parasitic class, without something to steal, will collapse through the floor of existence. And the only people who will be alive are the producers. And you say, oh, well, the criminal class will just steal from the producers. Okay, then the producers die, and then the criminal class dies. They need producers. And if the criminal class and the parasitic class, the politicians, the clergy, the financial people, if they can't figure out how to keep the producers producing and have some sort of a way to do that in a way that serves the parasitic class too, then the producers die. And as it is with any host that just does nothing but consumption, and that's what a parasite does, it consumes. When the host dies, the parasite dies. When the producers die, or they don't exist, or they're too heavily exploited by the parasite class dies. And that's how you get an extinction. We're either going to have to figure out how to promote and protect our producers, or we're all going to die. Do you see a way around that? Because I don't. And I'm not stupid. I look at things through the lens of physics. Physics is telling us, you're going to have to become producers. You're going to have to protect your producer class, and you're going to have to protect your producer class from the parasite class, the criminals, the politicians, the clergy, the merchants. You're going to have to protect your producer class, who has the seeds and has the skills and has the will and knows how to do these things and is willing to do these things and is willing to set aside power and hegemony and spirituality and profit. They're willing to, the producer class are these people who are willing to set aside these abstract pursuits and just focus on getting seeds in the ground, water on the seeds, get the harvest in, protect the harvest so we have something to eat. And unless you protect those people and encourage those people and make sure those people reproduce and create more producers, you're all going to die. Everyone's going to die. The parasites are all going to die. They're going to die. And all that's going to be left are producers. The parasite class is going to die. And the parasite class must perish. The parasite class must perish and become extinct. Anyone who is just a consumer and produces nothing of consequence, and I don't mean car tires, I don't mean iPhones, anybody who is just a consumer and produces nothing of consequence must perish. Must. They are the parasite class. And who is it on this planet right now who is not part of the parasite class and is entirely a producer? Nobody, except an African tribesman with a stick and a sharp rock making a spoon, a wooden spoon. Nobody other than that man with his goat and his male and female goats so they can reproduce, and his little bit of pasture, and his ability to milk the goats and have the milk and produce some crops and have the crops and cook the food, and he uses wood for his cooking, and he has a house that he stood up. It's made out of mud bricks, which he got the mud from the river right over there. The river's 200 feet away, and the river's where his water is, and he gets the mud from the river to make the clay bricks to stand up his hut, and his goats live out there, and they are eating on the pasture, and he brings the water up, and he waters the pasture, and he brings the water up in a bucket that he made himself out of wood, or he uses a gourd from some plant that grew, and he hollowed out the gourd, he put the seeds out, and he kept the gourd, and he goes to the water in the river, and he brings the water back, and he gives it to the goats, and he puts the water on the little bit of pasture so the goats have something to eat, and then he can milk the goats and eat the goats, and the goats reproduce because there's a male and a female, and that's production. And there's one guy. There's one person on this entire fucking rock we call the planet Earth. There is one person who is not part of the parasite class. One. And you think this is going to work out? And you think that by forestalling the purchase of your iPhone until next year is going to change any part of that? Any part of that at all? You think your decision about your consumer behavior makes any difference in any of that? It doesn't. People will say, I'll drive an electric car. Makes no difference. You go ahead and do that. I can maybe even see where that's maybe even a good idea, because you can kind of produce your own electricity. So in theory, you have a narrative, you have a story. You could tell yourself about how in the collapse of fossil fuels, your electric car charged by your solar and your batteries on your property means you have transportation. But if all that happened, if nobody's cars are running around, then that means that nobody's truck is running around because they're not electric. That means there's no food in the store and there's no workers going to the water treatment plant. And so you have your electric car, your solar panel, or your batteries, and you don't have food or water. Because you're still a consumer. You had to go to the store for your food. you had to go to the water treatment plant for your water. Basically, it comes to you at your tap. But you bought an electric car and you felt good about that, and you forestalled the purchase of a new iPhone for another year and you felt good about that, and you're all this self-righteous bullshit, and you're still a consumer, you're still part of the parasitic class, and you're going to die along with everybody else. Because none of that shit matters. None of that shit matters. Massive societal change on this scale requires everybody become a producer of everything that's necessary. Now, if you live in a village, you may have some skills in that village because you've been prudent. You created a village and you've got enough people to work the fields and enough people to work the orchards and enough people to take care of the children and the elders and enough people to provide protection and enough people to build chairs and wood and lumber and all the other things you need. And then you have a story. It's just not you with a stick and a sharp rock making a wooden spoon for yourself. You have a village. And because you have a village, you have enough skills and enough access to resources, but do you have soil? Do you have 100 acres? Do you have seed? Do you have the knowledge of how to combine those two? Do you have the water to make the seeds grow? Do you have any of those things? Listen, people. Listen to me. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. You can't do this. And the thing you are trying to do, this that you must do, that you can't do this. What is the this? You must escape your role as a parasite. As a consumer that never produces. And you can't do this. Well, why would you say that, Cougar? Because I want you to be fucking terrified. You need to be afraid. You need to get out of your complacency. You need to start looking around and saying, yeah, that's right. I'm kind of fucked. And from the position of fear, maybe we can get us some massive societal change. I don't know. Maybe. Probably not. I don't think we're going to do this. Be nice. I don't think we're going to do this. It starts with fear. Being afraid. Being very afraid. I'm afraid. I'm very afraid. I am really not comfortable at all with this situation. I am not at all comfortable. No. I have very bad feelings about our prospects. I think our prospects are about as grim as can be imagined. And I have an active imagination. And I think there's one person on this planet who can pull this off. One person, not 1%. One person. And it's not me. It's that African tribesman who has a herd of goats and some trees nearby, and he had mud to build his hut, and he's got a river. And yeah, one person. One actual person. That's my fear. There's one person. And that person doesn't even know any of this is going on. And if global heating comes to that one person first, if there is no water in the river, if the clay is baked hard so he can't work it into bricks, if the pasture dries up and the goats start to die from the lack of food, then that one person who today actually has a story, a narrative about how they can pull this off, to be a producer without consumption. If any of these things go bad because of global heating, that one person is the first to die. And then we have no person. Because of global heating, we end up in this situation where there's no person who is part of the producer class without being a consumer. There is no person. He died because of global heating. He and his goats and whatever, he had to move into town, and now he's a refugee, and he's on public assistance, living in an alley, struggling to survive, gets his 1 cup of rice a day. That guy, oh yeah, he used to be the person with the herd of goats and the river and the clay and the pasture and the wooden spoon and the sharp rock. He was that guy. Now he's living in an alley in Damascus, begging for his 1 cup of rice a day. You have to have a pretty good imagination to go down the path that I can go down anytime I want to. And every part of this, every time I go down this path, every time I come to the same conclusion. It starts with physics. We're screwed. Man, we are screwed 6 ways from Sunday. There is one person. Maybe I'll allow for one tribe. There's one tribe somewhere, lost in Amazonia, in the middle of the Kalahari. It's somewhere in Lapland. Okay, there's one tribe. There's one group of 100 people or 50 people that can do this without fossil fuels. There's one group somewhere. And global heating is going to kill them first. Physics. It's all physics, people. It's all physics. I don't know what to tell you. It's all physics. It's not me and my hippie opinion. It's not me being a Marxist or an anarchist or whatever. It's physics. It's just physics. And people don't understand physics or its role in shaping human destiny. How we got here. Where we're going from here. How we became a class of parasites. So that now we have Earth Overshoot Day. For fuck's sake. When was that ever a thing? We're halfway through the year. We've actually consumed all the produced resources on Earth, and now we're going into a deficit. Really? Really? We have an Earth Overshoot Day now? There's an actual day of the year when we've completely screwed the pooch? And then we just keep going on. People say, well, it must not be too important because we just keep going on. Yeah, because of fossil fuels. Yeah, you're eating fossil fuels the rest of the year. 6 months out of the year, you're eating fossil fuels. No, that ain't true. Yeah, that's true, people. Physics. Where do you think that corn comes from? Irrigation, fertilizers, hybrid seeds, tractors, trucks, supermarkets. My fucking God, why are people so stupid? Yes, Earth Overshoot Day is halfway through the year, and the rest of the year you're eating fossil fuels, and actually you were eating fossil fuels for the first 6 months out of the year. There may be 1 minute of the year that you can somehow say that you weren't surviving off of fossil fuels. And that 1 minute happened when you walked into your own goddamn backyard and picked that orange off the tree and ate it. And that gave you 1 minute of survival without fossil fuels. And that's it. That's it. That's your whole story. The one time you went into your backyard and picked an apple or an orange or whatever you have growing back there. You don't have anything, but let's say you did. And you ate it. That gave you life for a minute of the year. And that's the one time any of us did that. Now, if you're a little more aggressive, you've got a garden in the backyard and you've got root vegetables and you've got, climbing peas and whatever else you've got going on back there. Maybe you've got some cauliflower growing. You got, berries. You got a nut tree. You've got something going on, and you actually go out there and you pick those things and you eat them. All right, so now you're a little more than a minute into the year before you're in overshoot. There's maybe 10 minutes. Maybe there's a whole day out of the year when you weren't consuming fossil fuels. Except, of course, you weren't irrigating your crops with rainwater. Except maybe you were. We collect rainwater. So we have a story where there's part of the year when we're not using tap water to irrigate our crops. Oh, we use gray water. Well, that comes from the tap. Okay, before it gets used for something else, laundry or whatever, it came from the tap. So no, sorry, even though you're reusing your gray water, it still came from the tap. It's still part of the parasite class. And, we water our garden and we use some rainwater. And so there's this little story we can tell ourselves, this little narrative, this little fairy tale that we are, we're living for maybe 6 hours in the year where we don't consume fossil fuels. 6 hours. 6 hours where we're not in Earth overshoot. Where me and my family, we're not in Earth overshoot. 6 hours a year. 6 hours out of the year. That's our story. The rest of the time, we're going to Whole Foods and Trader Joe's and, driving and flying and doing all the things and the tap water and the electricity and the whatever, the whatnot, and the Amazon Prime deliveries and going to the doctor and getting your teeth filled and, all that stuff and x-rays and all that is all that. Everything I just said, that's all the parasite class. Not producing, just consuming. That's it. I've got a garden. I use gray water. I've got maybe 6 hours out of the entire year when I'm not participating in Earth Overshoot. 6 hours when I have a story that I'm doing it with the power of the sun, rain, water, on the soil, which was already there, with the plants and the seeds. And I got the seeds from last year's plants. So I'm using life. And the plant grows and I pull the thing up and I eat it. And I pick the orange and I eat that. And I pick the apple and I eat that. And there's a blackberry and there's a root vegetable and there's a something else. And maybe 6 hours out of the year, my body functions are maintained without fossil fuels. Okay. This can't go on. How else can I say it? I've been saying how long has this video been going on? An hour, probably? What a waste of my time, right? What am I doing? I'm not accomplishing anything. I've been saying this entire time. And really all my videos, all the videos up to episode 7 of Massive Societal Change, and then all the other videos I've done, and the book I've written, and everything I've said here for the last hour, it's the same thing. Everyone's part of the parasite class. They're all feeding on fossil fuels or derivatives of that, and they're all going to die. That's it. TLDR. All the parasites are going to die. What can I say? Well, I'll be back tomorrow saying it again, I guess, because what else am I going to do? What else can I do? I got to say the thing, people. I got to say the thing. What are we going to do? We need massive societal change. We've got 1,000 things that have got to be fixed. And each of those 1,000 things needs 1,000 other things that have to be fixed. We have 1,000 things times 1,000. We have a million things that we got to fix. And we got to fix it so that we can get off of fossil fuels. And then we have to get off of fossil fuels. What can I even say? We're not going to do any of it. We're not going to do any of it. Not the first thing, not the least thing, not the least part of this. We're not going to do any of it. We can't. You can't. I can't. We're stuck. We're just totally stuck. It's a joke. It's a cosmic joke. It's a comedy act. It's just comedy. It is so tragic. It's funny. We thought that we had dominion over the earth. And this was all God's will, and this is all heaven, and heaven on earth, but all we are is a bunch of parasites. Every parasite thinks that they got it made. I'll just eat this and suck that, and I'll spew out eggs and sperms, and we'll find another host, and this and that and the other thing, and then they're dead. There are no hosts. The hosts went extinct, and the parasites go extinct, and the parasites don't even know they're going extinct. They don't even know that the hosts are dying off. The parasites don't even know what's happening. They're just eating and sucking and spewing out sperms and eggs and reproducing and finding other hosts and happy, and then they're dead. That's the life of a parasite. Happy. Oops, I'm extinct. Where'd my host go? Nothing for my sperms and eggs to latch onto. There's nothing to suck. There's nothing to eat. There's nothing to consume. Parasites. I'm a parasite. My host is gone. Happy. Oops, extinct. That's us. That is us. That's us. And this isn't even a big stretch. This isn't even like, wow, that's really crazy. That's science fiction. No, that's what we are. That's what we are. That's just a frank assessment of the situation. We're not producers. We're consumers. We don't produce anything of importance. Except a farmer with a tractor, with fossil fuels. That's production? That's the best you can do? Okay, well, that ain't good enough. That's not going to make it. That has no future. Oh, well, you can't say that. Well, we'll electrify the tractors. We'll do something. You haven't yet. And you're running out of time. So you're not going to. Because electrifying all the tractors and providing electricity for the tractors would be massive societal change. Yeah, you need that. You're not going to get that. We're all going to be parasites, and we're all going to spew our sperms and eggs, and eventually we're going to run out of things to consume. That's it. Being a parasite is great, as long as it lasts. And when it doesn't last, then you're done. That's it. You're over. You're part of the fossil record. We're all going to be part of the fossil record. Okay, fine. I'm just listening to physics. Physics says, "Oh yeah, you people, you're all going to be part of the fossil record." Oh, okay. Okay. Is there any way out? Nope. Can I buy my iPhone next year? Will that make any difference? Go ahead. You'll save money, but no, won't make any difference. How about if I buy an electric car? Go ahead. Will that make any difference? No. Go ahead, though. Makes you feel better. Fine, go ahead. What if I consume less pork? Nah. I mean, go ahead, but it'll save you money, but no. What if I travel less? Fine. That's a good idea. Won't save you, though. No, nothing. There's nothing I can do. No. Just start producing the things you need to survive, and maybe that's good enough. That's what physics has to say. Produce the things you need to survive, and maybe that's good enough. Maybe, I don't know. At this point, maybe not. Maybe your C3 plants can't grow because it's too hot. And maybe, living next to a river doesn't do you any good because, global heating, climate change, got too hot. River dried up, so now you're going to die anyway. Now, you could do all the things you think you could do. Have farmland, have animals to pull the plow, have the seeds. You could do all that, and it still doesn't work out. Just got too hot. Physics doesn't care. Physics is going to do what physics does. And the lesson right now from physics is you better be a producer because the parasite class is done. And by parasite, I mean consumer. And by consumer, I mean everything. Everybody's a consumer all the time. And I could make a story about an African tribesman with 6 goats who's not a consumer. And I could also make a story where he doesn't make it because of climate change and global heating and all the politics and all the wars and all the refugee crises and the nuclear war and everything else that comes about because of global heating. Because we can't figure our shit out because we're stupid and we're chimps. And all we know is how to get angry and how to mob, storm the Capitol and how to launch nuclear weapons and how to threaten our neighbors and take their shit and kill them if they don't give it to us. And then we have their shit, but that shit isn't going to serve anybody either. And pretty soon there's no food, there's no water, there's no shit to steal, and then all the parasites die. There's no host. Nobody was a producer. Nobody made shit to steal. Nobody made food to steal. You just stole all the food that was in cans, and now the host is gone. There's nothing left to parasitize. Now you die. That's what physics is telling us. Oh, yeah. You don't produce anything? You're not part of the flow of life? Reproduction, nuts and seeds, and flowers, pollinators? You're not part of that? You're not working with any of that? Rainfall, right? River, fish in the river. You're not part of that? You don't get it? Oh, wow. Okay. Moving on. Still looking for somebody who gets that part. Not finding. Probably don't exist. That's all I got. I got to stop this as much fun as I'm having. Clearly. I got to stop doing this. I got other things to do. Won't save me, of course. But I'm going to go do them anyway. And hoping for the best. Not expecting it to happen that way. So, yeah. Like and subscribe. I don't know. Go ahead. I also have a link in my description to buy me a coffee for a joke, right? For a laugh, you can buy me a coffee. I'll have a cup of coffee on you, and we'll laugh about all this as I consume my cup of coffee from my coffee beans that come from Central America, where the coffee plants are going extinct because it's too hot, right? That cup of coffee. Whatever. Talk to you next time.